Hello! Hold on, I have to wait for the clarinet. Okay, hold on. We have to wait for the trumpet now. I'll show you guys what I'm looking at. So I'm just obsessed with them. If you guys are curious, they are the Baby Soda Jazz Band. The Baby Soda Jazz Band is a band that I found in New York that I thought was really cool. They're really chill. They play music like that, like New Orleans swing style jazz, and I think it's really cool. Give me one sec. I really wanted a cookie. Stella wanted one too, but she's not allowed to have cookies. So, I saw someone say that it has been 2 weeks since our last live, and I think that's crazy. So, what do you guys think so far? I remember after the first week, when we first started the book, everyone was kind of in a different place with it. A few people were really enjoying it, and a few people weren't enjoying it very much. And a lot of people were in the middle. They didn't really know. We didn't really know what to think. Now we're 2 weeks later, 150 pages later, 160 pages later, something like that, and we're a lot farther. A lot of other things have happened. We've seen them continue to progress to not fly missions or to try to get by and really just live in this chaotic world. It's funny because to me the world starts to make more sense the longer you read. Everyone's crazy. It's all a catch-22. Like they're stuck in this world. So let's hear your thoughts. So I hear I'm struggling a bit with the book. Okay. Slowly getting used to it. Cool, cool. The fog clears up. The book's kind of hard to keep up with. Okay. I still think the structure is very complicated, but I like it. It's challenging. Yes. Need to read? I would agree. It's growing on me. Sometimes I'm lost and confused, but for some reason I can't seem to want to put the book down when I'm reading it, even though it's a bit of a struggle. That's good. It's getting interesting. I think that's a very common sentiment. We all feel that it's now starting to get interesting. It feels like there's to me, it feels like there's some rising tension. I'm struggling too hard. It's too hard to read for me since English is my first. Totally understandable. I have a couple of things about that I've realized because I changed the way I was reading it to help myself out, and I'll explain that a bit. Starting to enjoy it now that we are even further in. Good. I need to buy the book. Yes, you do. I'm addicted to exactly how weird it is. I love it. Keeps me on my toes. You know, Dahlia, I love that you're finding that vibe, the funny, cool, weird vibe in the book. I think that's really important, and the more you turn into that, just knowing it's going to be weird, take more things as jokes. Things that seem really confusing, think that they're joking, and they start to make more sense. The book's confusing. Still don't like it. Alright. Whoa. Tiyuki Busra? Some of the characters crazy about war. Did you notice that? I don't know if it's crazy about war or crazy about the opportunities the war is giving them. Because that's something else. It seems like one of the themes here is that Yossarian feels that his life is deemed expendable by the people that are running the war, that are really just doing what they can to profit the most for the war to end. And it's a crazy thing, and no one knows what's going to happen, so he keeps hating that these people that are taking advantage of him are putting him in danger. It's got a different vibe from all the other books that we've read. I agree. I think it's most similar to I think in terms of the way it kind of messes with timelines, with the subject matter, the other anti-war book we've read is Slaughterhouse-5. So I think it matches Slaughterhouse-5 in a lot of ways. But it is different. Sometimes when I read a chapter, I have to go back and reread it as I don't fully comprehend what I just read. But in that rereading, in that full comprehension, the entirety of the world comes together. That happens to me too. I've been doing that. But let's keep reading. Some characters seem to think war is good, but the narrative makes it clear that the mindset is ridiculous. Awesome. Favorite quote of the book. We'll talk about quotes in a minute. Yeah, for me, this reminded me a lot of Slaughterhouse-5. There's a lot of similarities, and it's cool because Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut were actually friends in real life. So I think there's a great appreciation and similarity in their writing. I would think... so let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. Maybe it is disjointed because war is the same. There's no structure to war. Not only that, but there's no right or wrong. Like, no one knows what's happening. Well, not right or wrong. There's no... You're right, no structure at all. Everyone's just kind of hoping they make it to the next day. And like they say in the book, when their numbers are up, that's the end of it. There's no... That's it. You don't get lucky. Although Orr got very lucky in that one thing. Catch-22. I didn't take as many notes because so what do we still think about Yossarian? Do you guys like him more now? Do you guys not like him as much? I understand him better. I'm just as annoyed with him, especially some of the stuff that he pulls here, but I understand him a little more. What do you guys think about Yossarian? The chapter about Yossarian and Luciana really touched me. I don't know, I really liked it. I agree. It was kind of beautiful that they were able to find that connection that was pure, and then he threw it away, and then I think he realized that, to me, that was like a step in, like, not everything in life is pointless. Like, some of these things are really nice. Because he's in such a mindset. This kind of, like, woke him up a little bit. Definitely toward more sympathetic toward him, but he's still problematic. He's a coward. I end up almost shouting at him. I agree. The war made him insane, and he accepted that. Did the war make him insane, or did the war make the world insane, and he feels like he's the only sane person left? Because I feel like that's a lot of what Yossarian's perspective is. Is like, did everyone just go crazy with this thing? Does no one give a crap anymore? And I feel like that's what's the more... active part is him just being like, I can't believe I'm the only one, and the other people that are sane as well admit to their craziness. Like, I think Dr. Nika's like very obviously like, I can't ground you unless you're crazy, but if you're crazy but if you don't want to fly, I can't, that whole thing, the whole catch. There are so many catch-22s within this book. That thing is so prevalent because I think it's supposed to be like, at that time it was just either you're this or you're that, or you're that or you're this, and we can't help you. It's crazy. Yossarian's my favorite. He's flawed, but at the same time, his desperation to live is going to cause trouble. You do what you can to survive. But Kenzie Courtenay, he did it at the expense of other soldiers. Like, him doing making the camp have diarrhea by putting the laundry detergent in their sweet potatoes. He didn't do it. He asked a guy to do it for him. But he did that, and he got everyone sick. And then he moved the bomb line. What if other people tried to attack Bologna because they thought that they'd already bombed it and they captured it, and then they just went into enemy fire completely unaware and could have gotten injured or hurt. I don't know. I find Yossarian to be very selfish, but at the same time, I can't forget that he is flawed, and he lives in a time where he literally has to fly into a giant, like, metal duck and just sit there and hope he doesn't get hit while he waits to drop a bomb. And then as soon as he drops a bomb, he has to go all the way back out. That's got to be so stressful. Can you imagine that job? Literally, he has one of the most, I think, helpless positions in that case. He's not even the pilot, he's the bombardier. He just sits in the plane and he drops the bombs. So yeah, he feels helpless about war. He feels helpless about a situation. He even has a very helpless job. He can't run away in that job. He's in a plane and he goes towards the target. Still believe that he gives a book humanity, even when he does things that annoy me, but he's just fighting to stay alive. That's cool. I can't quite figure him out, but I'm starting to understand him a bit more. If that makes any sense. Totally makes sense. I think he just really wants to go home. I agree. You still don't understand what's wrong with the texting guy. What do you mean? I think he's so weird. Yeah, how funny was that? I can see double. I can see... I think there is so much comedy in these books. So there's a comedy duo I want you guys to look up. Their names are Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello have a very famous... actually, let's see something. Abbott and Costello have a very famous comedy routine called Who's On First. Check it out, real quick. You'll see it.
Friends, I told you that my partner would be here, and here he is. When you expect him, did you? Now, he always shapes up. Now, why not let the folks themselves ask for something that they'd like to hear? Something different. Now, is there anything special that you would like to hear us do?
Baseball.
If you've never seen Who's On First, I suggest you see it, because the style of comedy that they practice in Who's On First is pretty much what's running through this book. What do you mean? This, and it's this like constant. It was like I didn't explain that at all. I just said this a lot. Sorry, I don't know if that helped, but I would definitely check it out. Abbott and Costello. Here, someone take a screenshot. Ready? Abbott and Costello, Who's On First? What is it, Stella? What is it, Stella? Comedy geniuses. And I think if you look at more of the very confusing interactions through the lens of Who's On First, this kind of very comedic, jokey vibe where no one really wants to admit the truth or what's going on or anything like that, I think it will really, it'll really help everyone. It helped me a lot. And another thing, thank you, Rita. She's going to post it on Rosende Reads PDFs later, so if everyone can post that, that'd be great. Crap, I was going to say something. Another thing, let me tell you how, gosh, I didn't tell you my address. So, I agree with all of you that this book has been very difficult. It started off that way, and then it started to get a lot easier. But what I found made it very understandable for me was I started... You guys know I love audiobooks, right? So I started listening to the audiobook whilst reading at the same time. And that really helped me bring a through line, because the way the person was performing it, it made me understand. I think that Yossarian is a selfish but understandable and relatable character, because I think we've all done some stuff without the intention of just being selfish and not thinking it through. I agree 100%. He brings some humanity and some kind of logic to this book in a way that's not supposed to make sense based on what propaganda of the war and what stereotypically, I guess, like, that perspective was. This very much like, we're the best, we're going to win this whole war, it's justified, it's I don't disagree with that. But I'm saying I think it's making the audience aware of the two extremes on either side, and then how sane that middle perspective that otherwise would seem kind of disloyal or something makes it seem, I think, understandable and sane. How much is the audiobook? I don't remember. I think like $20. It really helped me. It really helped me. I like Clevenger because he stands all the perspectives. He was trying to talk to Yasarin about how nobody deserves to die. The combat has the right to air support. They don't deserve to be killed. I agree with that. Clevenger is the person who sees the big... I think in a way, he gives a very cool perspective because he sees the bigger picture, but he doesn't disagree with Yasarin when they talk about the other smaller things that are just annoying and are backwards and contradictory. Because Clevenger really upholds. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's the warrior ethos, there's the soldier's creed, and there are the army values: loyalty, integrity, courage, commitment, honor, discipline. You know, these army values that I think Clevenger really holds on to that you don't see with some of the other officers and some of the other characters. Clevenger seems like the only guy who I think sees it from that perspective and is like, really cool. I liked Clevenger a lot. How sad that he just kind of disappeared. Can we talk about that? Open your eyes, Clevenger. It doesn't make a damn bit of a difference who wins the war to someone who's dead. Wait, In Cold Blood, is that the Truman Capote book? Because we might put that on the list. Oh yeah, Whitcomb and the chaplain. I don't know. That was confusing. I have to reread that, to be honest with you guys, because I finished that earlier today. So let's look at that. Let's look at that chapter real quick and see if we can break that down. Can you feed it? Okay, the cat was a real cat, right? It wasn't like a person. Because I was starting to think about it maybe being like a person that they called cat, or like symbolically for a person that was like a cat. Just like Yasarin always refers to the dead man in his room, but really he's referring to the dead man's things, but that's all that's left of the dead man and the only evidence the dead man ever existed. So as far as Yasarin's concerned, that's the dead man in his room. The dead man who wasn't even there long enough to stay alive. He was there long enough just to die. I know, we're talking about the cat and Stella's meowing in the back. Up top. Middle. Orange, yeah. Alright, if anyone is looking for the next book is Back to Champions. We'll talk more about that later. We'll talk more about that later. We'll talk more about that book after. What time is it? How are we doing on time, guys? How are we doing on time? And I have no idea what my battery is on my phone. That's never good. I forgot to charge it last night. Wait, 40 minutes in or 40 minutes left? Like we've only been doing it. We started at 11:04. 40 minutes left. Cool. We only doing 20 minutes. Sweet. So yeah, let's talk more about the book. Let's talk about what else is everyone liking. What do you think is working? How do you come on? Let's keep doing. Oh, Should we do quotes then? Should we do quotes? Is that what we're going to do? Let's do quotes. Let's do quotes and see what the quotes inspire in terms of conversation. How does that make it? I think that's a cool idea. You talk about winning the war, and I talk about winning the war and staying alive. And then there's a big question that Clevenger asks there to Yossarian that I think kind of gives a perspective to this book, because that's a very important exchange. When Clevenger says to Yossarian, he goes, "We have no right to decide what, to even know what's supposed to be bombed, what's not supposed to be bombed, anything like that. That's not our job." And then he goes, "I'm not talking about. You're talking about two different things. You're talking about winning the war, and I'm talking about winning the war and staying alive. Which one's more important?" Oh yeah, what do you guys think about those loyalty oaths? And in terms of today, how does that make you feel? Sorry. Okay. The enemy is anybody's going to get you killed no matter which side he's on. See, that's an important exchange because Clevenger says, exactly, and which do you think is more important? Your life or the greater good of the world, essentially, is the comparison he's making there. And Yossarian says, dude, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter to someone who's dead. That's a very important thing in the book because I think they're talking about the means that people are going through. Like, they're only really concerned with themselves. And since Yossarian is so aware of it in every level, like from leadership down to the bottom, he's kind of, he's not happy. It reminds me of the quote. It reminds me of the quote by this famous military general. Your job isn't to die for your country. Your job is to make some poor sucker die for his. When he was talking to, I think it was Marines, but I could be wrong. I didn't get the part where at the end of the chapter 20, Yossarian fakes being another person, and the parents of a dead man don't ask him why their son is asking him to be called Yossarian and not Giuseppe. Did I miss that? Loyalty oath didn't promote loyalty for me. It's just repression. I agree. It's something. Loyalty oath is unnecessary. No matter what the oath, they have to obey the rules anyway. Don't like the colonel's attitude. I agree. The soldier who saw everything twice, the family who came to see their son die, that was already dead. Oh yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. I need to process that for a sec. Outside the hospital, they would throw him in prison if he started screaming about all the things he felt everyone ought to start screaming about, or they would put him in the hospital. Another catch-22. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference who wins the war to someone. Yes. I thought the loyalty oath is such a bullshit thing, but I think it also highlighted how Captain Black just wanted to do it for his own personal gain. It was to make himself look good. And then there was that almost that abuse of power and that mistrust in forming in the people that are supposed to be your leaders. And I think that's something kind of interesting when you put it in the perspective of today. The more it rained, the worse they suffered. The worse they suffered, the more they prayed it would stop. It would continue raining. I think that's maybe something that Joseph Heller was trying to push out. Because that quote, reading it now, made me think, what if the whole idea of war is supposed to just, it is a catch-22. You go and you kill people and you're a murderer, but they call you a hero. You go and you don't kill enough people and you're not a murderer, but you lose the war. You survive, but you had to do things that you didn't want to do, but you didn't survive because you were, it seems like the whole idea of war is just an entirety, like it's entirely a catch-22. And I feel like it's becoming present in every single way, almost as if it's creating this whole world. And it's helping me understand that that's the perspective looking at this. Be glad you're even alive, but be furious you're gonna die. That's another thing. Like, I would agree with that. I think the war as we know it and war written about in literature is almost always a catch-22. Can you read the quote on page 247? That quote really got me. Wait, 247? Did we read that far? 247. I don't know. How does it start? That seems like, I think that's a little far. Look at you. You don't care if you drink yourselves to death or drown yourselves to death, do you? Just as long as we don't fly ourselves. Just as long as we don't fly ourselves to death. But that's the thing. If they fly themselves to death, if they fly themselves to death, it's not their decision. $147. Or did you read that far about Gayo? We're not supposed to read that far. Maybe 147? But I'm not gonna lie, 147, that part really got me like this. Like the whole part where Yasarian starts freaking out in the plane because they don't want to die and all this shit's going down. That is a really cool part. I'm just kind of finishing into it. Well, we'll talk about that quote when we get to 247. If you can just remember, write that down. We'll talk about it next week, because that's probably what we're going to read. We're going to read just past that. Did the soldiers know why the war was happening? I'm not sure if I was told, but in history class we were told in the world that nobody knew what was happening. At the beginning, nobody knew what was happening in Germany. Remember, what really spurred the beginning of World War II was the German invasion of Poland in 1939. I believe it was September. So when you look at September 1939, the German invasion of Poland, that was when the Germans broke the rule, because Poland was supposed to be neutral. And they went into Poland and invaded a country. And that's when France and Italy were like, we cannot do this again. He went into, or was it Poland that he did, and they were like, all right, he can't do it again, and then he went further. Whatever it was, that was the precipice for the whole start of the war, and the United States didn't get involved until 1942. 1942 or 1943. We got involved much later into the war. 4 or 5 years the war had already been going on. So at this time, people did know what was going on in Germany. At the specific time in which this book is set, it's already late 1944, almost 1945, and the war ended in 1945. So they're on the other end of it, where the Germans are now getting backed in to their land, like whatever they were able to stretch themselves over parts of Italy, France, Belgium. They're slowly being pushed back into Germany, and then eventually, with the fall of Berlin in 1945, the Eastern Front of the war died. May 7th, 1945, VE Day, Victory Over Europe Day. That was the day that we took Berlin. So, at that time, people did know what was going on. So they knew what was happening, and Yasarian says that. He's like, no, a major, please, ground me. Because he's like, what, you don't want to win the war? He's like, we're going to win the war. We have more money, we have more men, we have more technology, and right now we have them on the run. So, they knew exactly what was going on. But then that's why they were so aware of it. They're like, we already know what's happening. Now we're just taking our time and putting people's lives at risk to benefit other things that aren't necessarily of the war. Well, the Pacific Front was still going on and wouldn't end until June, a few months later. You have oh my gosh, you have a piece of the Berlin Wall. That's fascinating. I find sometimes it's hard to focus on the big picture and context of the book, but maybe that's the point. When it's your own life, maybe it's harder to think like one big picture. I think that's one thing that Yasarian gets caught up in a lot. And only when he's able to focus on one thing at a time instead of trying to... But I think it's also because he's trying to look at the whole picture instead of one thing at a time. I think that it's a catch-22. You can't see the whole picture if you don't look at one thing at a time. But if you're not looking at one thing at a time, you'll never see the whole picture. but at the same time, if you're only focused on one, how do you know what's happening? It's so there's a bunch there. I think it's weird how a lot of these, to me, explanations can just come from just a simple catch-22. I like the part when they discuss about life. They say that some men get killed and some don't. Some get sick and some do not. Without any pattern of logic. There is no logic. Page 191 and 192. Let's look at that. All right. I'm going to read page 191. Is that okay? Here we go. So it's, The chaplain blushed, and the colonel understood at once that he had made a mistake. He lowered his head in shame, his cumbersome face burning. His fingers felt gross and unwieldy. He hated the chaplain venomously for being a chaplain and making a coarse blunder out of an observation that in any other circumstance he knew would have means of extricating them both from their devastating embarrassment. He recalled instead that the chaplain was only a captain, and he straightened at once with a shock and outraged gasp. His cheeks grew tight. Where were we? We were speaking about, the colonel pushed him sadistically with a long, glowering, malignant, hateful, silent stare. One thing I love that Joseph Heller does that. He does that a lot. A lot of adjectives to really give you a context of the exact countenance of a person, like exactly what their face looked like. You know? The colonel punished him sadistically with a long, glowering, malignant, hateful, silent stare. We were speaking about something else, he reminded the chaplain, cuttingly at last. We were not speaking about the firm... Oh, we're not going to read that sentence right now. Where are we going? Now, I want you to give a lot of thought to the kind of prayers we're going to say. I don't want anything heavy or sad. I'd like you to keep it light and snappy, something that will send the boys out feeling pretty good. You know what I mean? I don't want any of this kingdom of God or valley of death stuff. That's all too negative. What do you make the sour face for? I'm sorry, sir, the chaplain stammered. I happened to be thinking of the 23rd Psalm just as you said that. How does that one go? That's the one you're referring to, sir. The Lord is my shepherd. That's the one I was just referring to. It's out. What else have you got? Save me, O God, for the waters are... Come into... No waters, the colonel decided, blowing ruggedly into his cigarette holder after flipping the butt down into his combed brass ashtray. Why don't we try something musical? How about Harps on the Willows? That has the rivers of Babylon in it, sir, the chaplain replied. There we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. Zion, let's forget about that one right now, too. I'd like to know how that one even got in there. That whole part? The descriptiveness of what is confusing, but I think you just have to read it slower. I think this book, it really takes you have to really just read it and take your time, not try to finish, just really be like, phew. Oh, I keep missing comment. Yossarian's opinion on God. Can someone remind me where that is? And don't tell me God works in mysterious ways, Yossarian continued. There's nothing mysterious about it. He's not working at all. He's playing, or else he's forgotten all about us. Okay, Yossarian's opinion on God. I remember that part now. What do you guys... I think Yossarian's opinion on God is very understandable from his perspective. In terms of, I think we have to reimagine the context of what this war meant for the world. Let's take a step back really quickly. You know, that might be the answer, to act boastfully about something we ought to be ashamed of. That's the trick that never seems to fail. When they give him when they make him the captain and everything. But we need to take a step back and look at the context of the world in terms of World War II before I think we answer that view on God. The entire world was at war. Every day, propaganda Every day, people were dying. Every day, other people were leaving and going to war. People were coming home. Everything was done in the war effort at the time. There were commercials and bonds and things that people at home could be doing. They started growing their own gardens so they could have more food go to the GIs that were fighting for your freedom overseas. It was 65 million people died in World War II. 65 million people. And what Yossarian isn't saying, I don't think is wrong for him to question and to say, how can you say God is all good when he invented things like disease and all the gross things that are trying to kill us and tooth decay and things that tear us down from the inside? Like, how is he all knowing and powerful and all benevolent and doing that? How is he both of those things and still creating this? And then pain. And then she says, well, pain is a good thing. I don't know. That's a really tough question. I think it's twofold. It's saying some of the things that we think are the most annoying and dangerous things about us are the things that keep us alive. But at the same time, why did those things have to exist? I think there's a lot of value in what Yossarian questions about religion and about God. And I think he's entitled to that. Yeah, more civilians died in World War II than military. But think about that, 65 million people. That's, the plague was 1/3 of the world's population. 65 million people is bigger than that. And that was later when the population was bigger. When someone is taken away from you and that someone believes in God and you ask yourself, why would God do something like that? The part where Yossarian talked about the pain really got me. Yeah. To begin with, he was the squadron intelligence officer, which meant he was more intelligent than everyone else in the squadron. I think Captain Black thinks he's above and better than everyone. Also, remember, the intelligence captain or the head of the intelligence guard would have all the information. And information is power. So there's that power corrupting. There's that famous Winston Churchill quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So in a way, Captain Black feels like he has this absolute power. He's the intelligence guy. He has all the knowledge, all the information. Oh, I have to give me guys 1 second, guys. I have to do something very quickly. While I wait, we'll listen to some music. Give me a second. Sorry. It's very interesting to read these books and then hear what you guys are thinking about them and what parts really land on you, because it's sometimes interesting how they land on all of us, and some parts I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about it that way. That crazy bastard is the only sane one left, and in a crazy world, when you're sane, you're crazy and everyone else is sane. That's the whole other catch-22 once again. I mean, that device, that literary device that he kind of created, this idea that constantly contradicted itself in order to move itself forward, I think it's amazing. I really liked Luciana, and I was mad at him when he ripped up her dress, like she told him to. I thought that was dumb. Can we talk about that though? Can we talk about how awful Cathcart is? But what also makes him a great antagonist? Hateful and abhorrent, but I suppose someone has to drive the war in the way he does. Oh, we never got to talk about Major. Major. There we go. We never get to talk about him. I feel so bad for him. So I think it's important to note how hope and faith tended to promote survival and the strength it must take to believe in good when the world is so evil sometimes. It's easier to see the bad. And I think that's one of the things that I think as an audience we kind of fight with Yossarian. I think he's very afraid and I get annoyed with him, but at the same time I started to understand him more later on as the book progressed. And Major, I feel so bad for him. What do you think about the difference between the books and the Shadowhunters? Okay, that's the whole other question, guys. Maybe one day we'll have a live where we can just talk about Shadowhunters books. But right now we're going to keep on this one. Thank you, Niner Girl. 15 minutes-ish left. So we'll talk for another 5 about the book, and then we'll dive into next week and everything. Why call him Major? I agree. That was a dick move on his dad's part. Do you think we'll hear more about Luciana, or was the purpose that even he really wanted to see her again after ripping the paper, and he never will, so now we won't? Maybe. I'm interested for Milo's part. I understand Yossarian and have connected to him from the first chapter, but I like him because he's so flawed and so real. I understand him because he's flawed and real, and I understand he's human, but I have a trouble agreeing with him in a weird way. Major to the 4th. What do you think about the relationship between the Army Chaplain and Corporal Whitcomb? In what way? What do you mean? I think we're gonna really enjoy Milo. I think he has there's a lot of cool things about him. You know what? Let's do that. Let's do predictions for the next 5 minutes. All right. Predictions. What do we think's going to happen? How do we think this is going to end? Do we think Yossarian even survives the end of this book? If you know the answer and you spoil it, I will block you. I take my books very seriously. You think Yossarian will die? You think Yossarian's going to die? I think something bad's going to happen to Yossarian, so it's like he's dead, but he's not. It's going to be a catch-22. He's not going to die. Because I think it's going to be a catch-22. He's going to finally have survived, which I think I might be right on with this. I might be really wrong. My theory is that the whole thing is telling us these catch-22s happen, so finally when Yossarian accepts that he's going to die or wants to die, he survives and he gets to go home when he really wants to maybe seek vengeance. It's going to be a catch-22. I think he'll survive. He always comes up with something. I agree. I hope he survives. I think something bad's going to happen. I think more bad is going to happen. I don't think we'll see Yushian again. I feel like the writer wants to know Yossarian gave up on something really good because he doesn't care about anything but staying alive. Yossarian gets an actual liver problem. Yeah, right at the end of the war. He's going to die the day before the war ends. or he's gonna die by avoiding death. Like, I think he's gonna die by avoiding death. Like, he's not gonna go on a flight, and then he's gonna be on the base, and then the base gets bombed, and that's how he dies, or something like that. Like, the one thing he doesn't want to do, fly, would have saved him. Maybe like that. I don't know. Where are we with time? All right, we are at 11:51, so we're about 10 minutes left. What? What do you mean sort of dark? I don't know. I think it made sense. I think it made sense. I don't watch trailers. I really try to stay away from trailers, so I haven't watched the Fahrenheit trailer. I liked it because I saw like the first 3 seconds, and I saw Michael B. Jordan with Michael Shannon. Love both of them. I'm excited for it. Very excited for it. I love that we already read it, though. I love that we'll get to see it. Wow. That one's good. Catherine Mosier in a coma. It would be ironic if he died since he's so scared of death and he actually gets liver pain since he faked it. All right. Guys, since we're running on our time right now, let's talk about next week. We have a lot of really cool questions, a lot of things that we've talked about. Are we excited to keep reading? Because I am. I'm excited to kind of try to figure out this book, see where it's going. You know, we're about halfway through now, so we still have a long time to go. So I think we will read to page... What do you think about if we read to page... Gosh. If we read to page, what? Let's say... Chapter 26 or 286. What do you guys think? We read up to chapter 26 for this coming week, and we'll do Saturday so that our Australian fans can join in. Yeah? So, not through. The chapter 26 is called Arfi. We're not going to read Arfi. You're going to read up to it. So we have until, so what, about 80 pages, 60 pages, something like that. Through chapter 25. We will read it for Saturday at noon. I will confirm that with you guys at the end of the week, but we will keep that. We will keep it that way if that's cool. That is okay. And then I'm thinking, so that's only to like 285, and this book has... Whoa. $453. So $453, we're about halfway. We'll probably finish in about a couple weeks. So we have some time. Guys, don't forget, the next book is Breakfast of Champions. It's one of my favorite books. It's been a while since I've read it, so I'm very excited to read it again with all of you. Wow, I'm very excited. And then Lord of the Flies right after it, right? The book. Breakfast of Champions. Take a screenshot. Stella wanted to say hi. Next book, Breakfast of Champions, for Saturday at noon. We'll read through chapter 25, and yeah, I think based on today's discussion, we're all getting into the book a little bit more. I think we're all kind of I'm enjoying it more. I hope you guys are. I hope, if anything, you're able to read it easier. It'd be 12. It would be 12 p.m., but it would be Eastern Standard Time, so that would be my time. So 12 p.m. would be 9 a.m. in LA, and still 12 p.m. in Miami. Fan of the Opera? No. Wow, cool. And no, I have not read Wonder. Noon Eastern. England will be 5 p.m. Okay, great. All right, guys. I do have to run. We're ending a little early today. Hope that's cool. Turkey time? I don't know. I would put that in the Google. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you keep reading. Remember, we're going to read through chapter 25. I am excited to see where this book goes, how much we like it, learn more about Milo, hopefully. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you guys for this live. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Can't wait till next week. Don't forget, if you haven't gotten it, start planning on getting or planning to get. So when we do finish, you have a couple weeks. Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. That's our next book. Keep being awesome. Keep questioning things. Keep searching. Keep discovering. Keep being positive forces of change in this world. And Stella says goodbye as well. All right. Goodbye, guys. Until next time, keep reading.